Hey there, YouTubers. So we're going to do some benchmarking with the i5 10600KF, and really I'm going to use this video to compare benches between this and eventually the i9 10850K, which is going to go into this exact same computer, and I'll do a little comparison between those. And that's going to be basically, hey, is the i9 10850K worth twice as much as the i5 10600KF? Something like along those lines, right? All right, let's do our benchmark. So let's start with Intel's XTU. There's a lot of benchmarks I could use. We're going to go over this one first because you can see the stuff we have, the multipliers. This kind of, we did an unboxing on this channel. We really didn't tell you shit about the CPU and that, right? Sometimes it takes going into one of these type videos to actually see what it's all about. So we're going to come back here in a second. But so, like I said, i5 10600KF. It's less than a week old, I believe, at this point. We have two sticks of 16 gig. Added a Spectrix D41 RGB RAM, total of 32 gigs there, running at 3200 megahertz. Okay, so I do have XMP kicked in the BIOS. So if you care, here's some of the other information about it. Now the motherboard, this is probably, I think this is the best motherboard I've bought. Z490 Aris Elite AC. Now I did put the RTX 2060 Super in here so we could get some numbers in one of the other benchmarks. And there you go, folks. So let's go back over to this. Here's what you would see if you had this for basic tuning. Right? These are defaults, not messed with. Advanced. So in case you cared what the cores are, and this is something, that I've actually found kind of difficult to get after the fact. Sometimes when you adjust these will show, like if I made these all 48x multipliers, later on the default would say 48 and I wouldn't know what it originally was. So in some aspects doing this video is good for me because I can fix that later. Now CPU wise, we have a Noctua 140mm CPU cooler, single tower. I've put a second fan on it, and so you see temps are pretty cold or pretty cool. Alright, so this guy, we're gonna hit the benchmark and then we'll come back and we'll look at some other stuff here as well. Now I do have power limit set to unlimited. Alright, that's really a multi-core booster than it is single core for gaming. And that's about it. Everything else is set to default. So we're going to hit benchmark. We'll get a score. And you also see, because this taxes CPU pretty good, you will see what the temp is with the current setup. About halfway there. And boom, 2428. So not a super outstanding score, but this is an i5, so hey, it's probably now could we get this score higher? Yes, we can go and mess with those multipliers, as well as we could, there's a couple things we could do. Change the core voltage, mess with the multipliers, change the cache ring. That would get us higher scores. We can also mess with our base clock frequency up here, set this up to 102.9, and probably get that much higher. What will that do? It will raise the temperature that you saw here. Whoops, right here. And, this frequency number will also go up, right? So, would you guys like to see that? Sure, why not, right? Some of you might not be familiar with it. Now, What do I really usually use this for? I like to do this with a locked processor, okay? And so 102.9 is about the limit. Hopefully this will work without crashing on us. Alright, so why might that crash? Well, if you don't have enough of a power supply, that extra percentage might kick your RAM over into a region that your motherboard can't handle. So let's say just using XMP, the max that you could get out of your RAM was 3200 megahertz. If it's 3200 and you had tried to get it to say 3333 and failed, it's a good chance that 3200 with the XMP at 102.9, it may also cause your computer to reboot, but in this case it did not. Now, what did we see there? We saw an increase, I believe, in the benchmark. So temperature did not really go up much, surprisingly, and the core frequency actually stayed the same. So that's little things you can do. And if we wanted to, we could change our core multipliers here. I'll set this back to 100 megahertz. So easy enough, you know, adjusting these, right? If you want to run this whole thing at 4.8 gigahertz across all cores, right? So basically, when this thing turbo boosts, the max that you're seeing is in the first core up to 4.8 gigahertz, and in the sixth core 4.5 gigahertz. Okay, so that average you saw right here is somewhere between the average you see here is never going to be equal to 4.8. Now, if we were to change these guys, and I'd have to figure out what the core needs to be changed to. So we can just wing this, folks. I don't suggest doing it this way, but this is supposed to be about 3.3 less. And the only thing we did not fix would be the V core. So to get the most out of this, you would want to adjust this, right? So let's run our benchmark again. We should get slightly higher score, and it should actually run through the benchmark that much quicker. Now you see down here, what I wanted to show you is, boom, max core frequency 4.8. The average is going up ever so slightly. Of course, this is over time, right? So with this running higher, the average is actually increasing. And hopefully this one will be much higher than 4.53. Look at that, 4.80, okay? So how does one achieve 4.80? Well, a couple things. One, you've got to have a good CPU cooler, because you don't want this thermal throttling to come on. If this comes on, you're losing performance. You also need enough of a power supply. You don't want to have to deal with power limit throttling or the guy right next to it, okay? So those are important. So you see the temperature went up. Now, of course, if I keep cranking on this, and we're not going to do it because we need to go back and adjust the core voltage to figure it out, but we could keep cranking on these. At some point, this is not going to allow us to keep doing it. So to figure out what this was on, I run that over there. We go back to 4.5. This guy was at 47. This guy's at 47. All right. All right, let's go on to the next benchmark that we're going to do. And that's the Cinebench one. I'll run this twice. Okay, so we're leaving this open. And one thing I like to do also, check my current temperatures. So it's almost back to normal. That will affect the score. Alright, so this is pretty much default with power limit set to unlimited. And now when I do my comparison to the i9 10850K, this is one of those things where it will probably annihilate the CPU. And you can see over here in the scoring. So I have previously ran this. We had a 3562. We'll see what it gives us this time. The i9 10900F that I own, 5940. So the 10850K should be south of this. I'm betting about 6,300 points, which is still less than the 3900X, but this 10850K is overall better, much better. Excuse me, the 10850K that I own is a much better CPU overall. So alright, so we're getting there. Now I believe if I remember correctly, the 10700K got into the low 5,000s. I think I got it as high as 5,300. So big difference. And okay, the second time doing it, 3508. So a little worse. Not sure why. Let's go ahead and do this again. This time let's go all 48. Apply. And we never did change our cache ring back, did we? So yeah. Oops. Alright. Temperature wise, 75 degrees Celsius. I'm gonna blank this out. Let's run this again to re-verify CPU's back to being pretty cool. So this should get us a higher score. Alright, so there we go, 3754, and huge improvement obviously. Alright, let's do the final one. Let me set these back to where they were. Alright, so now we're going to do everybody's least favorite one. User benchmark. This will take a little bit of time. Alright, so it is done. The recorder stopped at 15 minutes for whatever reason. And now we're back. So let's go ahead and check this out. Here's your scores across the top. Pretty decent gamer, right? The i5 10600KF. Of course, it's not overclocked, so we're less than 50% mark. There's your core scores. It's amazing how this has come along in such a short period of time. From these used to be i7 numbers, 8700K-ish, i7 9700K, somewhere in there. There's what the graphics card scored out at. Now I have 3 M.2s in this, and this is the best one, right? But only in a motherboard supporting PCIe 4.0. This one currently is, I think when I get a 11 gen chip in there, it should work properly, but with 10 gen, it does not. And there's a special spot to put these in that I have not done yet. I put this in the regular PCIe 3.0, but you can see, had this have scored out, these are the highest numbers. This would have, scored higher, and overall would have been higher. There's what the RAM got. Not, anything spectacular. I've seen higher scores. But now, let's do one more thing. Let's go back and have a little fun here. Like I said, if I dialed in the cache, or not the cache, the vCore, we would get even better numbers. This is the last one we're going to do, folks. Just so you can see. Now we could spend, better part of a day working on this and getting it even, cranking it even better. Now while that's going on, let's jump over to this guy. You can see what the temps are getting to. How much power it's using. So most of the time I don't see it go over 111 here, but gotten a little higher. So potentially, since we have 3 drives, it's taking a little while longer. Alright, it's about done finally. 104. Wow, huge increase in the score here. Of course, this went from 2% to 7, so probably with me screwing around in the background. What does that tell you? It's all right here, okay? This went from 41 to 79 based on a huge increase here, okay? Surprisingly, this did not increase as much. A lot of times you do the all-core overclock. It really does not do that much for your gaming as far as something like Fortnite goes. All the other stuff looks about the same. No significant improvement, but the big number, folks, was in this. So, hey, thanks for checking out my video. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you.